kann heute nicht mehr staatliche Hilfe versprechen aus dem Bundeshaushalt.
Did you know that the heart of Berlin is currently pulsating with the rumble of thousands of tractors and trucks? It's not a festival or a celebration, but a manifestation of farmers' discontent. These agricultural warriors have converged on the German capital, fueled by frustration over cuts in subsidies and increasing regulations. But buckle up, because today we're peeling back the layers to uncover why these farmers are making such a ruckus. It's not just about farmers and diesel anymore. So let's break it down. Why are these farmers causing such a ruckus in the heart of Berlin? It's not merely about the subsidies for diesel that initially sparked the protest. It's a multifaceted issue that resonates across various aspects of German society. At the forefront of their discontent is the soaring energy prices, casting a shadow over the financial well-being of not just farmers but every stratum of society. Picture this: families struggling to pay bills, businesses grappling with increased operational costs, and individuals feeling the pinch of higher fuel prices at the pump. But that's not all. Jobs, or the fact that there aren't enough of them, are a big part of why everyone is so upset during these protests. In a nation where industries are being dismantled, the fear of unemployment looms large. The farmers, along with a broader segment of the population, see their livelihoods at risk, and the protests become a channel to voice these anxieties. The sentiment is clear. There's more at stake here than the fate of agricultural subsidies. Now, let's talk about immigration. In the midst of these protests, immigration emerges as a hot-button issue, intricately woven into the fabric of dissatisfaction. The protesters argue that while support is being sent elsewhere, their own communities are left to bear the brunt of economic uncertainties. The perception that funds are flowing out of the country to aid other causes, while essential sectors crumble, fuels resentment. It's a sentiment that strikes a chord not just with farmers, but with anyone feeling left behind in the grander scheme of economic policies. As industries face decimation, the collateral damage is felt far and wide. It's not only the farmers who find themselves grappling with the consequences of governmental decisions. The broader populace, witnessing the erosion of industries, begins to question the sustainability of their own communities. The protesters are not just defending their livelihoods, they are standing as representatives of a larger community grappling with the fallout of economic policies that seem to be prioritized elsewhere. In essence, the symphony of concerns heard in the protests is a composition of grievances that extend beyond agriculture. It's a narrative of communities facing the harsh realities of rising energy prices, unemployment fears, immigration woes, and the dismantling of industries. The farmers, with their tractors as instruments of dissent, are not just demanding attention for their specific concerns. They are amplifying the collective voice of a society grappling with the broader impacts of governmental decisions. The question that lingers: will the government hear and heed this multifaceted call for change? Only time will tell as the protests continue to echo through the streets of Berlin. Trucks and tractors have been blocking Berlin's streets for over a week now. A sea of 10,000 farmers has converged in the city center, drawing attention to their demands. Their message is clear. Without more financial help from the government, farming as they know it is under threat. But it's not just the farmers. It's a groundswell of dissatisfaction echoing across German society. Why are these farmers so fired up? Well, it seems like they believe that rural areas are being left behind, while urban areas reap the benefits of government policies. It's a protest against this perceived neglect, a demand for fairness. Are they right? Is the government truly favoring urban over rural? It's a question that hangs in the air as the protests continue. When the German finance minister faced the crowd, his words fell flat. Farmers were not having it. The call for more state aid was met with frustration, and shouts echoed through the crowd. The farmers' leaders urged the crowd to hear the minister out, but the message was clear. Unless the government reconsiders its plan to raise taxes, the tractors stay on the streets. As the tractors stay put, Berlin becomes a battleground for political stalemate. The government offers concessions, a gradual reduction in diesel subsidies, and a levy on food prices. But for the farmers, it's not enough. A standoff ensues, and as the government struggles to find a solution, the protests show no sign of waning. Now, let's pull back the curtain on the economic stage, where the government's proposed cuts take center stage. The looming threat comes in the form of a withdrawal of hundreds of millions of euros in subsidies, and it's a blow that strikes directly at the heart of farmers. Picture this. Diesel subsidies, once a lifeline for farmers navigating their expansive farmlands, are on the chopping block. Road tax exemptions, a reprieve for the hefty vehicles that plow through fields day in and day out, are also facing the guillotine. It's a surgical strike aimed at easing the strain on the national budget, but the collateral damage is the very essence of rural livelihoods. The government, in defense of these cuts, points to the necessity of plugging a significant hole in the national budget. It's a fiscal responsibility, they argue, to ensure the financial stability of the country. However, for the farmers who have taken to the streets in protest, this fiscal responsibility translates to a direct threat to their livelihoods. Diesel subsidies, considered a crucial support system for farmers, are not just about the cost of fuel. They symbolize the difference between sustainable farming and financial ruin. As the government grapples with its budgetary woes, the farmers find themselves caught in a web of uncertainty. It's not merely about the immediate impact of reduced subsidies. It's about the long-term viability of farming as a profession. The threat to their very livelihoods is magnified by the simultaneous withdrawal of road tax exemptions and the burden of bureaucratic hurdles. For farmers who rely on these subsidies to keep their operations afloat, the proposed cuts are akin to pulling the rug out from under their feet. The struggle intensifies as farmers, facing the harsh reality of potential financial distress, see their way of life at risk. The protests, in essence, become a desperate plea for the government to reconsider the depth of these cuts and the profound impact they will have on the agricultural landscape. As the tractors line the streets of Berlin, they serve not just as symbols of protest but as tangible representations of a community fighting to preserve its existence in the face of economic policies that threaten to erode the very foundation of their livelihoods. The government's attempt at placating the disgruntled farmers involved a series of concessions, yet the question lingers. Are these concessions sufficient to quell the rising tide of anger? One major olive branch extended was the decision to prolong the withdrawal of diesel subsidies, spreading the impact over 3 years instead of an abrupt and immediate cessation. This move aims to cushion the blow for farmers who heavily rely on these subsidies to keep their operations economically viable. Additionally, there's a promise of potential reforms by the summer, offering a glimmer of hope for a resolution that could address the farmers' concerns more comprehensively. However, as the tractors continue to dot the landscape of Berlin, it becomes evident that the government's concessions may not be hitting the mark. The protesters, steadfast in their demands, seem unconvinced that these measures go far enough to safeguard their livelihoods. The challenge for the government now lies in finding a delicate balance. A solution that not only addresses their budgetary concerns, but also acknowledges the genuine fears and struggles of the farming community. Now, here's a twist: rumors of far-right infiltration in the protests. The Farmers' Union insists that these protests are about exercising democratic rights, but whispers suggest a darker undercurrent. Are these protests becoming a platform for far-right sentiments? It's a question that adds another layer of complexity to an already tense situation. Let's zoom in on one aspect of the protests: fuel subsidies. Recently, the press visited a dairy farm near Berlin to get a first-hand account from a farmer, Pet Kim. Every machine on his 1,000-hectare farm runs on diesel, and the proposed subsidy cuts hit hard. Kim, like many others, is worried about the impact on his livelihood. The subsidy, though a small part of the overall picture, matters to these farmers. For Kim and his fellow farmers, the subsidy is a lifeline. It makes the difference between a thriving farm and one struggling to survive. Losing it means increased costs, uncompetitive prices, and a potential collapse of their businesses. The fear resonates not just with them, but with the younger generation, wondering if there'll even be a job in agriculture down the road. As we conclude our exploration of the Berlin protests, it's evident it's more than farmers protesting diesel subsidies. It's a heartfelt cry from rural Germany for fair treatment, urging the government to address concerns about energy prices, jobs, and immigration. Tractors line the streets, protests endure, and the question lingers: will the government heed? Share your thoughts below. Is it solely about subsidies, or is a more profound issue in play? We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.